Well, happy belated birthday, Elaine.
Thank you, Dana. I love birthdays.
I know a lot of people don't like birthdays.
And that is interesting. But in my experience, growing up, my mother always made such a big deal about birthdays, and it might have been her working mother guilt. So my mother was a career woman back in the 60s when I was born, and that was a time when women weren't. So for our birthdays, and I shared a picture on my actual birthday, and there I am in my blue velvet dress with the white trim, and I'm blowing the candles out, and the cake is fabulously decorated, and it's got all the little, Mom had the matching cups and the matching plates, and then Nanny would...
Well, that's a lot of guilt.
Probably, but
No.
they were such a big deal. And Nanny, I remember having money cakes. Do you remember money
yes.
cakes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
With the quarters
My
wrapped
grandmother
up in
used to
wax
actually
paper.
put that was something to do with pancakes at Shrove
Pancakes?
Tuesday. Was it Shrove
They
Tuesday?
put money in.
Yes, I'm like totally.
That must
totally
be a bear
dangerous.
machine thing.
It's a bear machine thing.
Dana, I don't think that's
Money
like
in
in other places.
I didn't have it in mind, but I've heard those stories. But yeah, birthday cakes for me. I remember my grandmother. My mom's parents were a lot older, so they always looked like Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth. Like my grandmother had matching gloves and hat, and he was a tall, slender man. And I remember them coming on birthdays. So they had a lot of grandchildren, but that's what they gave us as gifts. So my grandma had the standard like chocolate cake or marble cake, depending on what you wanted,
yum.
and she would fill the center with these. Like chocolate or butterscotch bunnies or other kinds of candies, and that's what I remember from birthdays and how fun they were when your birthday came around.
Oh yeah.
You didn't get piles of gifts, so getting a gift or two, that was like and you didn't buy all year round like we tend to do now. So birthdays were
I know
actually
every occasion
special.
now is a special occasion, but back then, yeah, birthdays were the special, and you could have friends. We could invite friends for the birthday party. So
Yes.
there's always, from my childhood and even into high school and university, there's around the table with the cake, all the friends, and fabulous birthday
Well,
parties.
for what was a package of Kool-Aid for 15 cents and a pack of hot
Yes.
dogs, and you had yourself a
and you had a
birthday
party. But it's interesting because not everybody has that experience, as you said. And so what happens is you marry somebody who didn't have the same birthday experience.
Oh.
And so for most of my married life with my husband, it was a series of grand disappointments. And he knows this, and we've had this conversation. And where I'd be like,
birthdays aren't a big deal to him.
no, birthdays weren't a big deal in their house, like in our
okay,
house. I
yeah.
mean, they probably had a cake and whatever.
Right.
But Mom really made us feel special.
Mm.
Like it was.
Which is
It,
nice.
it was nice.
It's
It's
fun to be
always nice to be
special.
felt special. Like on a day, it's your day. And so after I got together with the skipper, I'm like, oh, it's my birthday now. So he's going to do the same thing my parents did.
Sure.
And he didn't.
And no.
And he didn't. And so for many, many years, I spent time in disappointment, right? Until I started to take charge of my birthday. And so this year, his comment to me was, because it was Easter Sunday, my birthday, we're renovating
Right.
the house. And so I planned the party, I made the food, I spent the day exactly the way I wanted to spend it. And I went, what a perfect birthday.
So how does aging make you feel?
How does there's one
Because
thing.
birthdays
I-
add up
I
after
took-
a while.
I
and-
took charge, right? I took charge of my birthdays, right? And that made them special for me again. But I think aging has given me that edge. It has given me the okay to live life the way I want to live it and not sit there with my hands folded, being very polite and waiting for things to come to me.
Mm-hmm.
Which I did for many years, right?
Princess Elaine.
Princess Elaine, right? I was born on April
You were
21st,
born
the
a
Queen's
princess?
birthday.
Well, there you go.
So I spent a lot of my life waiting for something to come to me and then had grand disappointments.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So you take it in your own hands now and make the birthday special.
And not just birthdays, right? So birthdays I think is for me, it's a big thing for me to say,
So what do birthdays represent for you now? Like, they were always fun, obviously,
Yes.
but what do you think birthdays mean?
So birthdays, as you know, I'm some of the stuff I'm reading now, essentialism, digital minimalism. I'm looking at the numbers. It is a numbers game.
What do you
Although Well, because I'm on this side of 50. I'm 54, right?
Oh, you mean your birthday numbers.
Right. So when you look at numbers, like when I was 30, I never thought about aging. I never thought about how many years I had left or how many years I had left to do the things I wanted to do. But now that I'm 54, I'm thinking
Crunch
about
time.
those things. Well, it feels like crunch time now. And
Wayne Dyer used to say, I'm cramping for finals.
Right. That's what I almost feel like.
Hopefully that's not the case.
Well, no, but life is fleeting. So, and before we turned the microphone on, we did a little research on Christiane Northrup, because Christiane said not to say your age.
Yeah, we were having this debate about, you were saying how you embrace it, and I do too. I don't mind saying my age. I'm not one of these people who say, "Oh, I don't talk about
29
that."
forever.
Yeah, I do. I embrace it. I love birthdays, but I know I've read philosophies like hers that, and I can't remember why exactly she says that, but she said you should never say your age, and so that would be an interesting debate for people to post on our Facebook page. Do you tell your birthday or do you not? And why or why not?
Right. Why or why not are you embracing your age, right? So what is so tell us how old you are, and if you don't, are you 29 forever or 39 again?
Yeah.
Why? Why are you not saying that age?
Because I think, because for me, I know with Dr. Christiane Northrup, I think that has to do with, kind of like law of attraction or saying, maybe there's certain expectations when you age. Like, I don't know if you get this, or maybe you've said it yourself. You go, wow, she looks great, or he looks great for their age.
Dana, I used to, and somebody called me out or said, I read something that said, stop doing that. Stop saying she looks great for her age. Right, for her age, because really you are, right, there's the ageism. There's the ageism, and we are making a judgment. On women based on their age. Because I know a lot of people, and I mean, it's you're as young as you feel, or like,
true.
Like so for a number, I've been on this planet for 54 years, but I have to tell you, although I have a few creaks and groans in my body, I feel like there's times when I'm with my kids and I'm like, ooh, and what are they talking about right now? And I'm leaning in like I'm still 20 and telling them stories about when I was 20 and all the fun I've had. Well, the fun has really never stopped.
No. And it's so interesting when you say when you're talking to younger people or youthful, and I forget that I'm their, like, I think I'm their age. They could be 27. I'm like, oh yeah, I know them. They look like me. I'm like, no, I know they don't look like me, but I don't see the difference in age between people. I'm attracted to wisdom, so whether it's in someone who's 27 or someone who's 67, I'm more interested in the depth of people. So I
than the age of them.
I don't see it because it's
the depth rather than the width.
Right. But I think that's an important piece as we age. So I think we were talking about what we called this episode, and we said call it the power of aging. And I think there's a lot of power in aging. Someone had told me, there's nothing more powerful than a woman in her 40s because they know what they want.
But wait till you meet a woman in her 50s who's been through menopause, right? So when you're on the other side of menopause, and so we had the privilege of attending the St. John Chamber Women's event last week, and Natalie Godbout got up and spoke. And so she's reading The Wisdom of Menopause right now, and she said, when you take estrogen out of the equation, and you lose that estrogen fog after menopause, you have such clarity.
Yeah, that was an interesting comment, because estrogen being like a filter, the way you see things is filtered. And I thought, wow, that is, I'll be looking forward to that.
So that filter for me, that estrogen filter is leaving me. And so I have great clarity on what I want, what I don't want. So today, for instance, this is a big one for me, and I said this to you. So I got a friend request from somebody who I don't know, have never met. We have a lot of mutual friends, and what I said to her very politely and respectfully was, thank you for the friend request. I've never met you in person, and so no, I'm not going to accept your friend request. However, if you want to keep up with what I'm doing and we want to connect, then you can follow my Facebook page or you connect with me on Instagram. And So I would never have said that 5 years ago. I'd be like,
Right.
ooh, look, somebody wants to be my friend. But now I know that my time is precious. And so the people that I want to see on Facebook are the people I know.
Right.
I want to know what's going on with their family, right? I want to know what's going on in their lives. And so for me to actually say that to somebody, like when the estrogen fog goes away, I'm really clear.
Right.
That I have not been this clear in my entire life.
Right. So there's something that is clarity is the power of aging.
Yes.
You become very clear about what you want. We've talked about this on other shows about dialing into your life and doing what matters, because part of it is is whether you want to say your age or not, we do have a finite amount of time on this earth, and that you do.
We're all leaving the same way.
Yeah, that's right. We're not getting out here alive.
No, right.
But there is that importance of what is it that you want to do in your life, and recognizing there is a bit of a time crunch, and that you have to get really, really clear on that. That's super important.
Yeah. And one of the other things that I've made a decision on is coloring my hair. And so that was sort of a birthday gift for me. Last week I went, and I'm pretty sure my hairstylist said, I'm now cutting the last of the color out of your hair. And so I, in the last 5 years, I thought I was covering my gray, so I kept coloring my hair blonder and blonder. So I got pretty blonde at one point, like not pretty light. It wasn't pretty light blonde. I got quite light blonde. And I've been a brunette my entire life. So as my hair has started to grow out and I'm losing the color, my hair is really dark. I don't have a lot of gray, and so somebody thought I dyed my hair dark brown, so I went from blonde to dark brown. I'm like,
no, it's my
no,
color.
this is my color. This is my color that I have now. So it might be a little darker than I think when I was a kid. It might have been a lighter brown. So I've made that conscious decision right now not to color my hair.
Right.
I'm done.
And I've seen other women going that way, and I can see why it's such a pain. Time and money.
Oh my God.
To color your hair. I mean, it's do what you want to do.
Do it right. It's
right, and it's everybody's choice.
Right. So let's let that be said. It is a personal choice, and I'm refraining from judging. It is not my job to judge. Do what you want to do with your hair. It's your hair. But for me, I decided that my personal choice is I'm for now, and maybe in 10 years, I don't know, but I can't imagine. Because I just think it's one of those other things that adds to the sort of freedom and liberation of this power of aging, is that I get to choose how I show up.
Yeah, for sure. And that is I think it is very powerful. We get to choose that. And I'm just hearing making decisions that about even accepting yourself. I know I've seen a few people talk about this, because people tend to color their hair because maybe it makes them feel like they look prettier or different or more vibrant or whatever. And it may not be coloring hair, maybe it's something else that you do. But there's this moving into accepting all parts of yourself, because sometimes it can, when you look in the mirror and you see gray staring back, especially if you were younger, that can have an impact when you think you're youthful and you're like, where's this gray hair coming from? So I think there's an acceptance of yourself as you grow older too.
Yes, and that the youthfulness doesn't come from the color of my hair.
No.
My youthfulness comes from the work I do, right? The activities I spend my time on, the books I read. All of those things bring me youth, not the color of my hair.
No. And you can always tell a lot by people's energy, right? Their energy is beautiful. It's not their whatever we're doing to our outside. And
So we mentioned something before the microphone turned on. So I wrote some notes because these are really good and we need to bring them up. So as we're talking about coloring your hair and youthfulness, let's talk about Jane Fonda.
What about her?
Well, so
she's 82?
81, 82.
81.
Yeah, she's on the other side of 80.
Yeah.
And so Jane Fonda, there was something you said that about the choices that she made, about how youthful she looks right now.
Yeah. Well, I think we're just having the conversation around, there's so many people making choices to go more natural, not color the hair. And then I've seen Jane Fonda, I think, here's our standard Oprah quote, but I think she was being interviewed on Oprah, and she said, I wish that I had the courage not to do, the plastic surgery or whatever. So I think that's the power of just choosing what you want to do. I mean, it doesn't matter, if you want to look super youthful and do plastic surgery when you're 80, fill your boots.
But,
what would you
but do
say
you
about
think that has kept her relevant, or is that just sort of the icing on the outside of the cake? Because Jane Fonda, to me, is one of the most relevant women of our time. She's still, in the front of movements. She's marches, with I think it was the Me Too movement, and Jane Fonda is a force to be reckoned with.
Yes.
She's still an activist. She's a very busy activist. She's working in her industry still. Like, she is still being paid to be on television.
Yeah.
Right, in her 80s.
Yeah.
And
I think that's the part that we need to focus on more with women, is what they're doing and how they're showing up and
rather than how they're looking.
Although Jane
Fonda
looks fabulous.
She does all those years of what was it, her aerobics that she did.
Yeah, that's right.
But she's also talked about the struggles in her life, because she was it bulimia? So Jane Fonda had bulimia. She's had several hip replacements. So she is age. She's not immune to what happens in life, right?
Right, and I assume she was open about that. I would say, because
gosh,
she was open about doing plastic surgery, and I think that's an important point in this day and age, because we live in a filtered world where people take pictures and you have no idea if that's the actual one or if it was touched up.
Was it Snapseed? Yeah, Snapseed makes everybody look good.
But whatever we're doing, but people redoing retakes to get the right one so they can get the most likes on social media, and I think that's if people like her who talk about her struggles, so it's like, I may look one way, but this is how I feel and what I've done. Just being forthright about that too. I think it helps people set a different standard for themselves, because especially we look at TV and advertising, and they tend to set the standards for women's beauty.
Yes.
They're telling us, oh, you should look vibrant when you're drinking a cocktail, or you should, such great influence in advertising, and I think we need to set our own standard for beauty, our own standards for ourselves, and I think that's the power of aging, where people just don't care anymore. And
they're caring less.
They're caring less, but it seems like it takes people decades before they get to the point where they care less. Like, in your 20s and 30s, people still care. They care whether people like them. They care.
Yes. And I think that's where, as we age, right?
Yeah.
And wisdom, right? Age and wisdom. I think that's one of the gifts, if we're open to it. That is one of the gifts, because after menopause, there's a couple things I think that I've observed that happen with women. And so after menopause, and because I've been sort of coming through and on the other side, is that you can do one of two things, right? The estrogen fog goes away and you get clarity, and you go, you know what? I'm going to now do what I've always wanted to do, right? I am going to seize the day. I'm going to take control of my life. And then there's another group of women who I see who are so sad that their children have left, that they've lived vicariously through their children, that their estrogen fog has lifted, but they don't see that it is the biggest, grandest gift that is given to us, I think, by nature. Because if I think 20 years ago, or even let's say 15 years ago, that my children were going to leave my house, right, and go live their own life, my heart would break in half. Right? So with menopause and aging, and that's the power of aging, is that we are given this gift of letting go. That so that they can go live their lives, and our hearts don't break. My heart is not breaking anymore.
Right.
The fact that they live in different cities and they're living their lives, and I'm so proud of that. I'm proud that they are now taking responsibility, and they're making their own decisions for their life.
I think a big part of that, I know for me, what contributes to me, and because I have one son that's left for university, and it was tough to see him go, because it's a new chapter in our lives. That's what I was sad about. It's like, wow, that's kind of over. That went really fast. And
it does go fast. You blink. It
goes very fast. But I knew way back when, so because I was a stay-at-home mom, and I chose, and I have a teaching degree, I had to make a decision, as my children entered school, what was I going to do with my life? And I knew I was going to continue to stay at home, but I began to build my life. So I talked before, going to Toastmasters. I just knew public speaking was going to be a part of my life. and just started doing things. That's when I took coaching, and then you just getting out and networking more and being out in the community, and you just slowly built your life so that when my kids started to fly the nest, I wasn't devastated because I actually have something to look forward to.
You had something for yourself.
I have my life to look forward to that's built separately from theirs.
Yes.
And that was powerful for me. So I think that's a big piece of aging and becoming insightful, is setting your own self up for success. And my
regardless
children,
of having children or what.
no,
stage
my children's
they're-
job
yeah.
is not to make me happy. It's my job to make me happy.
Right.
That's
so
a
let's
burden.
just let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
It's not anybody else's job to
No.
make you happy.
No, it's not. And that's
But
a
people
burden.
will debate
That's
you
a
on
burden.
that.
Well,
Dana,
you
they
can
will
debate it. I
debate.
will stand strong on that one. That you're placing a burden on other people when you expect them to fill you up. Just like you talked about your birthdays being a disappointment, you took them into your own hands.
Yes.
Right? You can't change people or make people do something differently. But
So that was a burden for my husband. Right?
Right.
And so this year
he
he was
didn't
like,
even know it was a burden.
right. I'm like, he's doing the renos, and I got
Yes.
everything ready. And for him, he was just happy to be there.
Yeah.
He was happy that I was happy.
Right. And I think that's a big power as we age and get wiser. And it doesn't have to come with age. Just
It could be a
insight.
stroke of insight.
Right, and you
anytime.
can at 20. Yeah, you don't need to be old to recognize this. But not having expectations. We tend to set expectations for ourselves and place them on other people, and then
Yes.
we're constantly
I was
disappointed.
I could have had
Right.
like a crown and a whole
Right.
the scepter and the cape
Yes.
from my living my entire life expecting so much of people around me, and
Right.
and the people that know me and love me will say that Elaine has huge expectations. And so the more I realized that my expectations were killing the relationships I was having with people, I had to do some hard work on myself to let those go.
Yes, and there's a lot of power in that, doing work on yourself as a person at any age. But the earlier you do that, I think the better you're setting yourself up to age well, to move through life. One of the things that I tend to recognize, or I see, and I don't know how rampant it is, but there's a lot of people struggling as they get older. And there is, because as your children leave, you can see loneliness being a factor.
Well, that's one of the
You know?
reasons why my parents are moving in. There's a
Yeah.
loneliness factor, right?
Yeah.
That I believe, and we've heard Brené Brown say this, we are built for connection. We're hardwired for connection.
We are.
And so in the older, look back in history, people lived in villages.
Closer
they
together.
lived closer together, and now we live in our homes, and the only time you see people is when their garage opens and their car
Right.
comes out.
See, that's a very Ontario lifestyle. That's what I used to do when I lived there. Maritimers should be different.
But there's a lot of times when it isn't different.
I know,
And
we
so
live in different times
Right.
now.
And so in order for me to help, so this is why we're making the life choices that we are.
Yes.
So that, we have people around us that we love. They're, we're not alone. I'm not alone.
Right.
And
yeah,
my
she spent
husband
a lot
will
of
say,
time
I'm
alone.
doing this for my wife. She's lonely, right?
Yeah.
And as the children leave, and he's on a ship for every second week, so I'm home alone for 7 days. Like
Yeah.
that is, and I'm a social creature.
Right.
It's pretty, when you're going hello and it echoes, and then the dog perks up and she's like, "Are you talking to me?"
Runs in response. Yeah.
Exactly. So what can we do, right? So there's that other power. Because if you'd have said to me 10 years ago, "You're going to renovate your house and move your parents in," I'd be like, "Hell no." Right?
Yeah.
Because I was in a whole different place. But now I have this clarity about how I want to live my life.
Right.
And it's not for everybody, but I get to make those choices for me. And as long as and you got to filter those through if you live with other people.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Not
I'm
everybody
not
would be on board
arbitrarily
with that.
making all these decisions, right? These are family decisions, and we talk to the kids about it as well, right? It's like, we didn't ask them for their permission,
Yeah.
but we shared with them what we're doing.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Yes.
It's not their house, right? It's their
Right.
home. It's their home. But now that they come and visit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is that power of, I think, the power of aging. And the power of aging can happen anytime. So it doesn't have to happen after
I don't
menopause.
know what's the magical number, but
No, but I think it's you recognizing that, we aren't infinite. We're not here forever. And so while we're here in our finite state, is that what can we do to contribute? What can we do to contribute? And not just to the community, but to ourselves. Because we have beautiful gifts inside of us. And so how am I manifesting those gifts in the world?
Well, I think a part of it is recognizing those gifts. And we just had a wonderful chat with one of our guests that you'll hear in the next week. And I think that's one of the things that I walked away from. It's stuff I know because I'm in that coaching and training and self-awareness industry, I guess, that there has to be that work on yourself. Because I used to think about when I was younger, I was a lot less confident. And I'm much more confident now. And you still have your days where you question yourself. You know, it's a matter of how connected am I to my highest self today.
And some days we're not.
And sometimes things knock you off the perch. And
yes.
Only a little temporarily. I don't stay there for long. And I know how to reconnect to that space. But yeah, I think there's power in self-reflection and knowing who you are. I think the greatest question that you can answer is, who am I? Who am I? What a beautiful question. And as you age, as you move through time, as you know more of yourself and you step more and more into that, that's how you become powerful. And it isn't like a arrogant squash people.
No, it's not
just
arrogance.
A reverence for yourself. It's understanding.
Well, back to Natalie, who we talked about with our guest that was here earlier, and that was one of the observations that you had made, was that she is a woman who loves herself, standing in her power, and isn't afraid to say, I'm coming out of the estrogen fog, and it feels good.
But part of our conversation, I think, was kind of a little after-show conversation we had with our previous guest that you'll hear, is there was this talk, we talked about, you know, women in particular owning their strengths and owning who they are, and that people are afraid to say it, that they're kick-ass at something because it might come off as being arrogant. And I think there's a big difference between being arrogant and owning who you are. And I think for me, that as I grow older, and I just relate it to aging, but it's more related to my own insight and getting to know who I am, but that's taking me time, so I call it aging. But as I know myself more, it's owning who I am, and that's what's making me feel more and more confident, because I'm recognizing and understanding who I am and loving that process.
What a beautiful gift. What a beautiful gift that is to give yourself.
Yes. And that's exactly it. I'm giving it to myself. And no one else can do it. It's not a gift anybody else can give me. They can compliment me or acknowledge me.
Right.
But if I don't believe it, if I don't embody it.
And if somebody says to you, wow, you're great at this. And you go, oh, duh.
Oh, you deflect.
And you deflect, right? Yeah. You're not owning. You haven't owned that yet.
No. And you're not honoring the person who is giving it to you. They're seeing something in you.
They're reflecting. They're the mirror.
Yeah.
Showing you.
Showing that. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of power in getting older and using your time wisely, and just answering the question, who am I? I think that's a good question. That's a good question. And think about that for yourself if you're a listener. Who am I? How would you describe yourself? And not in your typical titles. Oh, I'm
leave the titles aside, and so that so maybe that's a nice little way to close here. But a question that we will ask on our Facebook, on our page, and that we would love to have. We would love to have the conversation, and we would love to know who our listeners are and who you are. That would be a beautiful gift.
Who are
to
you?
yourself.
Yeah. So who am I? Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you, Dana.